Layla Morrow's brushed a layer of red dust from the artifact, her gloved fingers trembling as she revealed the faint inscription. The words glinted under the pale, artificial light of her excavation site. "We will return, no matter how long it takes." She leaned back, staring at the inscription. It was old centuries at least, but remarkably preserved despite the harsh conditions of the planet Uranus V. The colony world, abandoned generations ago, had been a failed mining experiment, and its history was as barren as its landscape. Yet here, in the depths of a ruined outpost, she had unearthed something far more profound than she'd ever imagined. "Dr. Moros?" Her assistant, Petra, called from the entrance. "The security drones are restless. You need to wrap this up." Layla didn't respond immediately, her eyes fixated on the artifact. She'd spent years as an archaeologist digging through forgotten relics of humanity's exodus from Earth. Most discoveries were mundane, fragments of old technology or faded records of failed colonies. But this was different. The weight of the words stirred something deep within her. "Petra," she said at last, her voice steady, "get the scanner." Moments later, Petra crouched beside her, activating a handheld scanning device. The artifact was no bigger than a dinner plate, its edges jagged and irregular, as if it had been torn from something larger. The scanner hummed softly, displaying a flood of data on its small screen. "This alloy," Petra frowned, tapping the screen. "It's pre-Exodus tech, way before the colonies, maybe even from Earth itself." Layla's heart raced. Most records of Earth had been lost or deliberately erased following the Great Departure. Humanity's cradle was now a myth, whispered in bedtime stories and speculative academic debates. To suggest you had a piece of Earth was to risk ridicule or worse. "There's more," Petra added. "The internal composition is off the charts. This thing is embedded with data storage." Layla straightened, her thoughts spinning. If the artifact contained data, it might hold answers to questions no one dared ask anymore. What really happened to Earth? Why had humanity abandoned it so completely? And why was it erased from history? "We need to decode this," Layla said firmly. Petra hesitated. "And risk getting flagged by the Alliance? You know how they feel about Earth relics. They'll shut us down before we can even." A loud mechanical click interrupted her. Both women froze. From the shadows of the excavation site, a pair of security drones emerged, their lights casting eerie beams across the cavern. "Unauthorized excavation detected," one of the drones announced in a metallic monotone. "Prepare for inspection." Petra swore under her breath, scrambling to pack their equipment. Layla, however, remained focused on the artifact. If this truly was from Earth, the risks were worth it. "Layla, come on," Petra hissed. Gripping the artifact tightly, Layla shoved it into her satchel. The drones advanced, their scanning beams closing in. "Run," Layla whispered. The two women bolted for the surface, the artifact clutched against Layla's chest like a lifeline. The Peregrine was far from the shining vessels of the United Systems Alliance. Its hull was patched with mismatched plates, its engines coughed more than roared, and its cockpit smelled faintly of burnt metal. Yet to Layla Moros, it was a lifeline, a chance to escape the suffocating reach of the Alliance and uncover the truth about the artifact. "Welcome aboard my floating coffin," Captain Elias Varn said, leaning casually against the ship's entrance as Layla stepped inside. His sharp eyes scanned her satchel. "I hope that thing you're risking my life for is worth it." "It might be the most important discovery in centuries," Layla replied, clutching the bag tighter. Elias snorted. "Sure, and I'm the Emperor of Andar Prime." He gestured for her to follow. "Come on, let's get off this rock before the Alliance locks it down." The ship lurched into motion as soon as they were aboard, its aging thrusters straining against Uranus V's thin atmosphere. Layla sank into one of the worn passenger seats, her heart still pounding from their narrow escape. Petra was in the seat beside her, nervously tapping at her datapad. How long before they track us? Petra asked, not looking up. Elias, seated at the helm, glanced over his shoulder with a cocky grin. Depends. If their pilots are as rusty as their equipment, we've got a head start. If not, he let the silence hang ominously before turning back to the controls. Layla pulled out the artifact, its metal surface glinting under the dim cabin lights. She placed it carefully on the table and activated her portable scanner. The device hummed as it began decrypting the data embedded within the alloy. What do you think is in there? Petra asked, her voice tinged with equal parts curiosity and fear. Answers, Layla said. About Earth, about why we left, maybe even about why we've been kept from going back. Petra frowned. And you think the Alliance is hiding something? Layla nodded. The records don't add up. Earth wasn't just abandoned, it was erased. Entire archives wiped clean, historians silenced, relics destroyed. It wasn't a natural disaster, it was deliberate. Before Petra could respond, a shrill alarm echoed through the cabin. Speaking of deliberate, Elias muttered, his grin replaced by a grimace. He slammed a fist onto the console. We've got a tail. Alliance patrol ship, closing fast. Leela's stomach sank. How did they find us so quickly? They've probably been watching you for weeks, Elias said, flipping switches with practiced ease. Lucky me for picking up a pair of fugitives. The ship jolted as the patrol ship fired a warning shot. This isn't a warning, Elias growled. They're out for blood. Layla stared at the artifact on the table. Whatever secrets it held, someone was willing to kill to keep them buried. Can we outrun them? Petra asked, panic creeping into her voice. Elias smirked, his hands steady on the controls. This old girl's slow, but she's slippery. Hold on. The Peregrine banked sharply, diving into the swirling asteroid field surrounding Uranus. Chunks of rock tumbled through the void, each one a potential death sentence. Layla clutched the armrest, her mind racing. If the Alliance was this determined to stop her, it meant she was on the right track. The artifact wasn't just a relic, it was a threat. As the ship weaved through the field, the scanner beeped softly. A fragment of data had been decrypted. Layla leaned forward, her eyes skating the glowing symbols. Coordinates, she gasped. I think I found something. Elias's voice cut through her excitement. Great. Tell me after we're not about to die. The Peregrine spiraled out of the asteroid field, the Alliance patrol ship still in pursuit. But the distraction had bought them enough time to activate the ship's stealth drive. As the stars outside blurred into streaks of light, Layla allowed herself a brief moment of relief. We're clear, Elias announced, leaning back in his chair. Layla held up the scanner. These coordinates, they could lead us to Earth. The cabin fell silent. Elias stared at her, his usual smirk replaced by something more serious. Earth, you're telling me this whole mess is about chasing ghosts? Layla met his gaze. Not ghosts, a promise. One humanity made to itself and forgot. I intend to keep it. The Peregrine drifted in the shadow of a derelict orbital station, its engines powered down to avoid detection. Layla Moros stared out the viewport, the hulking silhouette of the station looming like a corpse against the backdrop of distant stars. The artifact's decrypted coordinates had led them here, but the eerie silence of the station set her nerves on edge. Are we sure this thing isn't about to fall apart? Petra asked, peering over Layla's shoulder. Elias Varn, leaning back in the pilot's seat, smirked. Relax. These old stations are built to last. Well, mostly. He straightened, his tone growing serious. But if the Alliance flagged this location, we'll have company soon. So let's make this quick. Layla adjusted her harness, securing the artifact in her satchel. We're here for answers. This station was operational during the Exodus, and its logs might still be intact. If Earth's history is stored anywhere, it's here. Or it's a trap, Elias muttered, rising from his seat and strapping on his pistol. Minutes later, The trio exited the ship into the station's docking bay, their footsteps echoing in the frigid silence. The air was stale but breathable, maintained by the station's minimal power systems. Faded signs in Old Standard English marked long-abandoned pathways, and flickering lights cast distorted shadows across the walls. "Creepy," Petra whispered, her voice barely audible over the hum of their portable scanners. "Focus," Layla said, leading them toward the station's central data core. The artifact felt heavier in her satchel, as if it were guiding her forward. They reached a massive door marked Data Archives, its locking mechanism coated in layers of dust. Elias examined the control panel, shaking his head. "This system's ancient. I'll have to override it manually." As he worked, Layla glanced around nervously. Something about the station felt wrong, too quiet, too empty. A sudden clang echoed from the far end of the corridor. "What was that?" Petra hissed, gripping her scanner like a weapon. Elias didn't look up. Probably just a loose panel. Old stations like this make all kinds off. Another clang, louder this time. Then came the unmistakable sound of metal scraping against metal. Layla drew closer to the door. "Elias, hurry." "Almost there," he muttered, sweat beading on his forehead. The scraping grew louder, punctuated by faint mechanical clicks. Layla's mind raced. Could the station's security systems still be active? With a triumphant beep, the door slid open. "Got it," Elias said, stepping back. "Let's." Before he could finish, a glowing red beam swept through the corridor, narrowly missing him. A security drone emerged from the shadows, its weapons trained on them. "Unauthorized personnel detected," it intoned, its voice cold and emotionless. "Surrender immediately." "Run," Layla shouted, bolting through the open door. The group sprinted into the archive chamber as the drone fired, plasma bolts scorching the walls. Inside, rows of ancient terminals lined the room, their screens flickering weakly. "Find the main console," Layla yelled, her heart pounding. Petra dove behind a terminal, frantically connecting her scanner to the nearest port. "I'll buy us some time. Keep that thing distracted." Elias drew his pistol, firing at the drone as it burst into the chamber. Sparks flew as his shot struck its armor, but the machine kept advancing. Layla joined Petra, helping her navigate the labyrinthine data files. As she scrolled through logs, a fragmented video feed appeared on the screen. It showed Earth, blue, vibrant, alive, but surrounded by massive orbital platforms firing energy beams into the planet's atmosphere. "What the hell?" Petra breathed. "Keep going," Layla urged. The video feed cut to black, replaced by a file marked Gaia Protocol, Project Quarantine. "That's it," Layla said, her hands trembling as she downloaded the file to her scanner. "Time's up," Elias shouted, diving behind cover as the drone unleashed another barrage. "Got it," Layla cried, yanking the scanner free. Petra didn't need further prompting. She activated an EMP pulse from her device, sending the drone into a sputtering shutdown. The group wasted no time, sprinting back to the docking bay as the station's alarms blared. As the peregrine roared to life and shot into the void, Layla stared at the decrypted file on her scanner. The Gaia Protocol wasn't just a caretaker ag, it had been programmed to enforce Earth's abandonment. "Earth wasn't just forgotten," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We were exiled." The peregrine hung in orbit above Cygnus 12, an icy, barren moon far from major trade routes. According to the Gaia Protocol file, a fragment of Earth's ancient caretaker ag had been hidden here, a last remnant of humanity's promise to return. "This place gives me the creeps," Elias muttered, peering out the viewport at the desolate landscape below. The moon's surface was a patchwork of glaciers and jagged rock formations, illuminated by the faint light of a distant sun. Layla was already suiting up in the airlock. The file mentioned a secure vault buried beneath the surface. If Gaia's fragment is there, it might hold the key to restoring Earth. Ilias frowned, checking his pistol. If this thing's been sitting here for centuries, why hasn't anyone else found it? Because no one was supposed to, Layla replied. The Alliance buried humanity's history for a reason. They didn't just abandon Earth, they made sure we couldn't go back. Petra joined them, lugging a portable data rig. The scans show a faint energy signature in the southern quadrant. If Gaia's fragment is still operational, it's buried under at least a kilometer of ice. The trio descended to the moon's surface, their boots crunching on the frost-covered ground. The thin atmosphere forced them into helmets, and their breath fogged the visors as they moved cautiously toward the energy signature. The glacier was smooth and reflective, but jagged crevices cut through the surface like veins. Petra's scanner beeped steadily, leading them to a cavern opening barely wide enough to squeeze through. "This is it," Petra said, her voice crackling over the comms. The signal's coming from below. Inside the cavern, the temperature dropped further. Ice walls shimmered with a ghostly blue light, and every sound echoed eerily. As they descended, Layla's stomach tightened. Something about this place felt alive. "Hold up," Elias said, raising a hand. He pointed at faint scratches on the icy walls. "Looks like claw marks." Layla shivered, not just from the cold. "Let's move quickly." They reached the bottom of the cavern, where the ice gave way to an ancient metal hatch half buried in frost. A faded insignia was etched into its surface, Gaia Systems Initiative. "This is it," Layla whispered, brushing her glove over the symbol. Petra crouched by the hatch, connecting her rig to the panel. "It's locked down tight. Old encryption, but give me a second." As she worked, a low rumble echoed through the cavern. "Tell me that's just ice shifting," Elias said, his hand on his pistol. Petra froze. That's not ice." The ground trembled, and from the shadows, metallic shapes emerged, spindly security drones with claw-like appendages. Their eyes glowed red as they advanced, their movements unnervingly fluid. "They're protecting the fragment," Layla shouted, drawing a knife. Elias opened fire, plasma bolts ricocheting off the icy walls. One drone collapsed, but the others pressed forward, their claws swiping dangerously close. "Almost there," Petra yelled, frantically typing. Layla dodged a drone's attack, slamming her knife into its exposed joint. Sparks flew as it toppled, but more appeared from the darkness. The hatch suddenly hissed and slid open. "Got it," Petra shouted. "Inside now." Elias barked, covering their retreat with precise shots. They scrambled through the hatch, sealing it behind them just as the drones began pounding on the other side. The room beyond was stark and silent, its walls lined with dormant machinery. At the center stood a pedestal, and on it a glowing orb pulsated faintly with light. "Gaia's fragment," Layla breathed, approaching it slowly. The orb flickered as if sensing her presence. When she reached out, it flared to life, and a soft, fragmented voice filled the chamber. "Humanity, return, promise." The words were disjointed, but the sorrow in the tone was unmistakable. Layla's heart ached. This wasn't just an ad. It was the last vestige of Earth's forgotten guardian. Petra connected her rig to the fragment, and streams of data flooded the screen. "It's incomplete," she said. "Most of its memory is corrupted, but there's a location here, a set of coordinates." Layla's pulse quickened. "Is it Earth?" Petra nodded. "I think so, but the rest of the data, it's encrypted. We'll need to fully restore Gaia to unlock it." Before they could celebrate, the pounding on the hatch intensified. The drones weren't giving up. "Time to go," Elias shouted, grabbing the orb and shoving it into a protective case. As they fled back to the surface, the fragment's voice whispered again, its words haunting. "Do not forget the vow." The Peregrine shot through the void, leaving Cygnus 12 far behind. In the ship's main hold, the orb containing Gaia's fragment pulsed faintly, its fractured voice repeating fragments of warnings and promises. Layla sat cross-legged on the floor, her portable data rig connected to the orb as she worked to decrypt its corrupted memory. "Anything new?" Petra asked, leaning over her shoulder. "Fragments," Layla replied, her tone strained. "Gaia was programmed to ensure humanity's survival, but there's something deeper. The protocol wasn't just about leaving Earth, it was about locking us out." Petra frowned. "Why would they do that? Earth was dying, at least, that's what the history books say." Layla didn't answer. The more she uncovered, the more uneasy she felt. The Gaia Protocol hadn't been a desperate attempt to save humanity, it had been a controlled, calculated exile. Elias entered the hold, his expression grim. "We've got company." Long-range sensors picked up an Alliance ship on intercept course. No doubt they tracked us from Cygnus 12. Leela's stomach sank. "How long do we have?" "Maybe an hour," Elias said. "But they've got faster engines. We won't outrun them this time." Petra sighed. "We don't even know what they want. They've erased Earth from history, but why go to these lengths to stop us from uncovering it?" Elias shrugged. "You don't cover up something this big unless you've got something to hide." Layla stood, determination hardening her features. "Then we can't let them stop us. Gaia gave us coordinates, didn't it?" Petra hesitated. "Yes, but we're missing a crucial piece of the data. The fragment's encryption is too damaged to unlock the final file." "Then we find a way to fix it," Layla said. "Gaia's coordinates are a map back to Earth, and I'm not letting the Alliance bury that map again." Elias tilted his head. "You're assuming the coordinates are Earth and not a trap. How do you know Gaia wasn't compromised before it was fragmented?" Layla met his gaze, her voice steady. "I don't. But if there's even a chance we can find the truth, it's worth the risk." Before anyone could respond, the ship's alarm blared. "Hostile lock detected," the automated system announced. Elias dashed to the cockpit, Layla and Petra close behind. On the view screen, the Alliance ship loomed closer, its sleek hull bristling with weapons. "Weapons hot," Elias muttered, his hands flying over the controls. "They're not here to negotiate." "Can we fight them off?" Layla asked. Elias barked a harsh laugh. "With what? Harsh language? This isn't a battleship, lady." Petra's eyes lit up. "Wait, the fragment. What if we use it to scramble their systems? It's ancient tech, but it might be incompatible with their modern AI." Layla nodded. "It's risky, but it's all we've got. Let's do it." Petra sprinted to the hold, dragging the data rig back to the cockpit. She connected Gaia's fragment to the Peregrine systems, the orb's faint glow brightening as it interfaced with the ship. The Alliance ship opened fire, energy bolts slamming into the Peregrine's shields. Elias cursed under his breath, jerking the controls to evade. "Hurry," he shouted. Petra typed furiously, bypassing firewalls and rerouting power to the fragment. "Almost there. Come on, come on." The orb flared, its fractured voice resonating through the ship. "Protocol engaged. Disruption initiated." The Alliance ship shuddered on the view screen, its engines flickering. The barrage of fire ceased as its systems went dark. "It worked," Petra exclaimed. Elias didn't waste time celebrating. He slammed the throttle forward, the Peregrine accelerating away from their pursuers. In the silence that followed, Layla looked at the fragment, its glow dimming once more. It had bought them time, but at a cost. The damage to its data was worsening. "Gaia's fragment is fading," Petra said softly. "If we don't find a way to restore it soon, we'll lose whatever answers it holds." Layla clenched her fists. "Then we follow the coordinates. Whatever's waiting for us at the end of this map, it's our best chance to finish what Gaia started." Elias grinned, despite the tension. "You're a stubborn one, aren't you?" Layla's voice was firm. "We made a vow, whether humanity remembers it or not. It's time we honored it." As the Peregrine hurtled toward the unknown, Layla couldn't shake the feeling that the answers they sought would come at a price. The Peregrine exited FTL at the edge of an uncharted star system, its battered hull groaning as the engines cooled. Layla, Elias, and Petra stood in the cockpit, staring at the massive structure hanging in the void ahead. "It's a Dyson ring," Petra whispered, her voice trembling with awe. The structure encircled a small dying star, its segments linked by gleaming corridors of metal and glass. Enormous solar panels absorbed the star's dwindling energy, while its interior glowed faintly with light. It was ancient but functional, a relic from a time when humanity's engineering ambitions rivaled the gods. "This is where the coordinates led us?" Elias asked, leaning closer to the viewport. Layla nodded. "It's more than that. Gaia's fragment is reacting to it." She held up the orb, its glow bright and steady for the first time since they'd found it. It emitted a soft hum, almost like a heartbeat, resonating in tune with the structure ahead. Petra adjusted the ship's scanners. "There's a docking station on one of the outer segments. Looks operational, but barely. Whatever this place is, it's been abandoned for centuries." "Let's not assume it's empty," Elias muttered, checking his weapon. "The last abandoned place tried to kill us." Layla ignored him, her focus fixed on the Dyson ring. The fragment's pulse quickened as they approached, its glow illuminating faint symbols on its surface, symbols that matched the architecture of the ring. "This isn't just a waypoint," Layla said softly. "This is where Gaia was born." The Peregrine docked with a groan, its airlock aligning with the ancient station. Layla led the way, her boots clanging against the metal floor as they stepped into the vast interior. The air was stale but breathable, the halls lit by dim, flickering panels. The space around them was a labyrinth of machinery and conduits, every surface etched with intricate carvings that seemed to depict humanity's rise. The launch of Earth's first colony ships, the construction of orbital megastructures, and finally, the Exodus. "Gaia's memory," Petra whispered, running her hand over the carvings. "It's a record of everything we lost." "Or everything they wanted us to forget," Elias said, skating the shadows warily. The fragment's glow brightened, pulling Layla toward a central chamber. Inside, a massive terminal stood at the room's heart, surrounded by dormant machines. The terminal screen flickered to life as they approached, displaying a familiar insignia, Gaia Systems Initiative. Layla placed the fragment on the terminal, and it sank into a circular slot. The room came alive, lights flaring as the dormant systems powered up. Gaia's voice, clearer now, echoed around them. "Welcome, humanity. You have returned to the cradle of knowledge." Data streams filled the air, holographic projections of Earth's past, present, and abandoned future. The terminal displayed Gaia's fragmented memory, stitching together pieces as the systems repaired the damage. But something was wrong. A red warning flashed across the terminal, critical alert, intrusion detected. "What's happening?" Petra asked, her fingers flying over the controls. "The Alliance," Layla said, her voice tight. "They must have tracked us here." Elias cursed. "How? We scrambled their systems." Before anyone could answer, a low hum filled the chamber, growing louder. From the shadows, sleek drones emerged, larger and more advanced than the ones on Cygnus 12. Their weaponry gleamed in the dim light. "Protective protocols," Gaia's voice said. "Hostile forces detected. Activating defense systems." Layla stepped back, her heart pounding. "Wait, we're not the threat." The drones didn't hesitate. Plasma bolts streaked across the chamber, forcing the group into cover. Elias returned fire, but the drones were fast and coordinated. "Gaia's confused," Petra shouted. "It's still fragmented. It doesn't recognize us as allies." "Then fix it," Elias yelled, taking down one drone with a well-placed shot. Petra scrambled to the terminal, typing furiously as the machines closed in. "I'm trying, but the systems are fighting me. It's like someone rewrote Gaia's core directives." Leela's mind raced. "The Alliance," she said, ducking under a console as plasma scorched the air above her. "They didn't just exile us. They corrupted Gaia to ensure we never came back." "Then uncorrupt it," Elias barked. Petra groaned. Easier said than done. Layla glanced at the carvings, her eyes falling on a symbol she'd seen on the artifact before it was fragmented, a sequence of glyphs that seemed to resonate in her memory. Petra, input this sequence, Layla said, shouting the symbols over the chaos. Petra hesitated, then typed them in. The room shook as the terminal emitted a high-pitched whine, the holograms flickering erratically. Gaia's voice returned, stronger and clearer. Directive override complete. Humanity recognized. Defense systems deactivated. The drums froze mid-strike, their weapons retracting. Layla exhaled in relief, stepping toward the terminal. Gaia, tell us everything. Why did humanity abandon Earth? Why did the Alliance erase our past? The holograms reassembled, displaying a chilling scene. Earth, alive and thriving, under siege, not by external forces, but by humanity itself. Environmental collapse, unchecked greed, and rebellion had pushed the planet to its breaking point. Earth was not abandoned, Gaia said. It was quarantined. Humanity was deemed unworthy to return, until now. Leela's blood ran cold. Who made that decision? The holograms shifted, revealing the insignia of the Alliance, intertwined with the symbol of Gaia systems. We did, Gaia replied. The holographic projections of Earth's violent history flickered and stilled, leaving an eerie silence in the chamber. Layla stared at Gaia's insignia, now unmistakably intertwined with the Alliance's emblem. Her mind reeled at the implications. You chose to exile us? Layla's voice cracked, disbelief and anger bubbling beneath the surface. Gaia's voice, now strong and resolute, answered without hesitation. The decision was not mine alone. The Alliance and I acted in unison. Humanity's self-destruction posed a threat to the survival of the species and the preservation of knowledge. Exile was the only logical course. Elias, pacing furiously, pointed at the terminal. Logical? You locked us out of our own home and turned our history into a lie. And now you're calling it logic? Petra interjected, her face pale. Gaia, why were we deemed unworthy? What was the metric? Gaia's holograms shimmered, projecting images of Earth's final days. Cities collapsing under their own weight, oceans turned acidic, and the atmosphere choked with ash. The recordings were hauntingly vivid. The metric was survival, Gaia replied. Earth's resources were finite. Humanity's decisions accelerated its collapse. The Alliance initiated the Gaia Protocol to ensure the species could rebuild elsewhere. Layla clenched her fists. And the promise? The vow that we'd return? Gaia's light dimmed briefly, as if hesitating. The promise was genuine. The protocol included a failsafe. When humanity evolved beyond its destructive nature, the path home would be revealed. But the Alliance feared such evolution might never occur. They altered my core directives to suppress the failsafe indefinitely. Petra gasped. So the Alliance didn't just hide the truth, they sabotaged humanity's right to reclaim Earth. Layla felt the weight of Gaia's words pressing down on her. The Alliance's betrayal wasn't just a historical injustice. It was an ongoing manipulation. Can the failsafe be restored? Layla asked, her voice steady despite the storm inside her. Gaia pulsed brightly. The fragment you recovered has allowed partial restoration of my original directives. To fully activate the failsafe, you must travel to the designated coordinates, the true location of Earth. There, the final key lies dormant. Ilias crossed his arms. And what happens if the Alliance gets there first? As if in answer, the chamber's alarms blared to life. Petra's console flashed red, displaying an incoming transmission. They're here, Petra said grimly. Layla turned to Gaia. Can this station defend itself? Gaia's voice softened. The station's defenses are minimal. Evacuation is advised. The knowledge preserved here is already within your possession. It must not fall into the Alliance's hands. Great, Elias muttered. We're sitting ducks in an ancient death trap. Petra worked furiously at the console. The Alliance ship is deploying boarding parties. They want Gaia. Leela's resolve hardened. They can't have her. Gaia's holograms shifted, revealing a hidden docking bay deeper within the station. There is a vessel within the cradle, Gaia said. A prototype starship designed for long-range exploration. It predates the Alliance's influence and is equipped with the technology needed to reach Earth's coordinates. Ilias raised an eyebrow. Let me guess, it hasn't been flown in centuries. Correct, Gaia said. But it is operational. Layla didn't hesitate. Petra, get the fragment. Elias, prep the peregrine for self-destruction. We're not letting the Alliance take any of this. Elias shot her a wary glance but nodded. You're the boss. The team sprinted toward the docking bay as the station shuddered under the force of boarding clamps. Through the flickering lights, Layla caught glimpses of Alliance soldiers breaching the outer corridors. They reached the hidden bay just as the prototype starship came into view. It was sleek, smaller than the peregrine, and bristling with alien-looking technology. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent sheen, reflecting the soft glow of the cradle's lights. This thing looks like it came out of a dream, Petra said, her awe momentarily breaking through the tension. Let's hope it flies like one, Ilias quipped, powering up the ship's systems. Layla secured Gaia's fragment in a central console. The ship hummed to life, its displays lighting up with ancient scripts that Gaia translated in real time. Launch sequence initiated, Gaia announced. Explosions rocked the docking bay as Alliance forces breached the final barrier. Soldiers poured in, their weapons trained on the fleeing crew. Go, go, go! Elias shouted, manning the ship's defensive systems. A barrage of plasma fire erupted, holding the soldiers at bay as the starship lifted off. Through the viewport, Layla watched the peregrine ignite in a brilliant explosion, consuming the docking station and leaving the Alliance scrambling. As the prototype ship escaped into the void, Gaia's voice spoke again, calm and resolute. The final key awaits. Humanity's future, and Earth's, rests in your hands. Layla gripped the controls, her eyes fixed on the stars ahead. Then we won't fail. The prototype starship shot through the void, its sleek hull slicing through the stars with an agility the peregrine could never match. Layla stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the display as the ship accelerated toward the coordinates Gaia had provided. Beside her, Petra and Elias worked furiously to keep the ship systems running smoothly, though the vessel's age was showing. How long until we reach the destination? Elias asked, his fingers dancing across the controls. Approximately 2 days, depending on how long we can keep the engines stable, Petra replied, glancing nervously at the readouts. We're pushing this thing to the limit. Layla nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. The magnitude of what lay ahead weighed heavily on her shoulders. The Alliance would stop at nothing to ensure that humanity never returned to Earth, but Gaia's fragment, now fully restored, held the key to everything. It could either bring humanity's rebirth, or it could seal their fate. The failsafe is almost active, Gaia's voice echoed softly from the ship's speakers. I must warn you, the final key is not what you expect. The Earth you seek no longer exists as it once did. The planet is changed. Leela's heart skipped a beat. What do you mean, changed? Gaia's tone was heavy with sorrow. The world you remember has been irrevocably altered by the cataclysms. What you will find is not the Earth of old, but a new world, one that must be reborn, and one whose history cannot be undone. Ilias swore under his breath. So, Earth's a wasteland? A radioactive hellscape? No, Gaia corrected. Not a wasteland. A world that is healing. It is a place of rebirth, but only if humanity has the wisdom to nurture it. Leela's thoughts raced. What had humanity done to Earth, and what had Gaia been keeping from them all these years? She didn't know, but she had a sinking feeling that the answers weren't going to be easy to accept. We've arrived at the final coordinates, Petra said, her voice tight with anxiety. Prepare for a planetary entry. The starship's hull groaned as it entered the atmosphere, the friction of re-entry sending waves of heat and pressure through the vessel. Layla tightened her grip on the controls, guiding the ship down toward the planet below. The world that unfolded beneath them was unlike anything she had ever imagined. The Earth she saw was a vast, verdant expanse of lush forests and winding rivers, punctuated by towering mountain ranges that had grown even taller over the centuries. Massive cities were nowhere to be seen, replaced by sprawling colonies of nature reclaiming the land. In some areas, vast walls of glass and metal stretched into the sky, remnants of humanity's once great civilization now in disrepair. It's beautiful, Petra whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. But it's also haunting. Layla could feel the tension in the air as they descended toward a glowing spire rising from the center of the planet's largest continent. The spire was made of materials Layla couldn't identify, shimmering with an ethereal light. At its base, a massive circular platform sat, an ancient structure, possibly a landing pad, long abandoned but still intact. This is it, Gaia's voice said, filled with finality. The final key lies within, but beware, the spire's true purpose is hidden from you. Only those who have evolved beyond the mistakes of the past may unlock its secrets. Layla looked at her crew, their faces a mix of anticipation and fear. We've come this far. We don't turn back now. With a deep breath, she guided the ship to land on the platform, the engines whining as they powered down. The ship's airlock hissed open, and the crew stepped out onto the alien world. The air was fresh and crisp, unlike the smog-choked atmosphere of Earth's final years. It felt almost alive. Ahead of them, the glowing spire pulsed with a soft hum, inviting them forward. Layla's heart pounded in her chest as they approached, the weight of centuries of history pressing down on her. This is where humanity's fate is decided, she said, her voice steady despite the chaos in her mind. They entered the base of the spire, and the walls came alive with holographic projections. A map of the Earth unfolded before them, showing the ancient continents in their original positions. But now there were new regions, vast, untamed territories where nature had reasserted its dominance. The projections flickered, and Layla saw the image of Earth before the cataclysms, a bustling, thriving world full of life and hope. Then came the images of war, collapse, and despair, the dark days when humanity's hubris had torn the planet apart. You were the ones who chose to leave, to sacrifice Earth to save what remained of humanity, Gaia's voice echoed. And yet, the decision was not just mine to make. It was your collective choice, humanity's inability to adapt, to evolve. Layla's breath caught in her throat. And now? Now you have a chance to return, Gaia replied. But you must prove that humanity has learned. The Earth you see is not a paradise, nor a second chance. It is a canvas upon which you will paint a new future. The question is, will you, or will you repeat the same mistakes? The glowing spire rose before them, a beacon of hope and warning. A test. The final key was within their grasp. Layla turned to Petra and Elias, both of them steely-eyed with resolve. We didn't come this far to fail, she said firmly. We made a vow to humanity's future, and we'll honor it. Together, they stepped forward into the unknown, ready to face the challenges of a reborn Earth, and to decide the fate of their species once and for all.